covering the draft for us here at PHLY. He is a cornerstone of our Flyers coverage. Tremendous. You got to read him. He's incredible insight. He is Charlie O'Connor. Charlie!
How's it going, Anthony?
How are you, buddy? Thanks for doing this
Doing
for
okay.
us. All right.
Yeah, no problem. How's everything going back in Philly?
I got news for you. It's been a bad week, right? It's been a lousy week. And yesterday, Bryce and Schwarber both get hurt. So, groin, hamstrings, it's not big. We're excited it's Friday just to get rid of this week. And we're also excited that it's the draft, man. Dude, I got to tell you, the Michkov thing has really breathed a lot of life into the franchise. And now people are starting to look at the draft. A Flyers renaissance is here, my man.
I get that sense, too. It does seem like it's not even just the fact that Flyers fans are excited, because obviously they were going to be excited about the fact that this guy who is a potential star was originally supposed to be waiting 3 years for, now just 1 year. It's the fact that I'm noticing a lot of people who really don't follow the Flyers that closely are getting on board, are excited, are interested. And that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of life. And I think this season, because I think people like to grow with a team. It's fun. The Phillies, like 06, 07, like people got on board because it was fun to grow with. And of course, in 08, they break through. And we were just talking about the cyclical nature of sports. And sometimes you miss a cycle, right? You miss your up cycle. And that's what happened to the Flyers. And I think finally it's come around again to where you're building. Now, this draft is crucial. Do you believe that they're going to trade up to try to get into the top 10? One of those defensemen you got your eye on?
What I can tell you is they're trying. All of the chatter here in Vegas is that the Flyers are one of the, if not the most aggressive teams in terms of trying to trade up. Now, it's hard to get a full read on who they're looking to trade up for. There obviously were strong rumors last week that they were trying to trade up to 7 with Ottawa. It looks like that trade, at least the initial framework, has fallen through. The newest rumor is that they're trying to trade up to 4 with Columbus.
Wow.
And originally that trade offer was rejected. Then the Flyers apparently rejected a counter. Now we'll see if that can come back to fruition, on the floor on draft day. My guess, and this is just a guess in terms of what I know about their team needs, what I've heard, and then the public rumors that are out, I think they might be looking for a center, just given where they're looking to target, because if they're trading up to 4, there's a guy, Caden Lidstrom, who's big, he's physical, and he's a pivot. So he's a center. And that would fit a need. I know Jonesy would love that size down the middle. I know that for a fact. But then you go to 7, and I wonder, okay, are they trying to trade up maybe for Berkeley Catton, who's the smaller center, who's probably a little bit more skilled, but obviously doesn't have the size and physicality? I'm not saying they wouldn't be trading up for a defenseman, because there's a lot of really good defensemen in this draft, but the Flyers seem to realize that their biggest long-term need really is that potential 1C. And that's my guess. My guess is they're trying to come out of this draft with that guy.
You know more than I do here. Just from doing the research, it appears that there's really only one, like that gettable 1C, the Russian kid, Demidov, right?
Yeah, he's more of a winger. Yeah, Demidov is more of a winger. There's some people that think he can play the middle, and it's possible that if the Flyers think that Demidov can play the middle, that maybe he's the target. But he's more, in my view, he's more of a winger. Okay. So we're really talking about Celebrini at 1, who they're not going to get because
right.
Want. Then you've got Caden Lidstrom, Berkeley Catton, and Constable Hellenius. Those are your 3 other centers.
Lidstrom kind of makes sense
at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to pair Michkov with? If you're going to go that route, right? Like, don't you have to think like who's the guy that projects to be next to Michkov? Or right? You're going to need to build a blue line, and like we were talking earlier, there's some terrific defense. It appears it's very deep in defensemen.
You're right, and there very well could be a defenseman or two that they love, that they think could be a pure number one, because that is what they're lacking. I think they have a decent future defense core. They got good players. Like, they're really high on Oliver Bonk, who they took last year.
Yeah.
Travis Sanheim's under contract forever. They traded for Jamie Drysdale in the Cutter Gauthier trade, so they have him. They have good pieces. Cam York took a real step forward.
Yeah.
They have pieces, but they don't have that one guy who can take over a game, who could play 30 minutes a night in the playoffs. And if they think there's a guy in this draft that they could trade up for that can be that guy, yeah, that could be the plan.
Hey, let me ask you, you know these prospects. The kid Zane Perrick, who I guess is like a true offensive defenseman who can quarterback a power play. I mean, I see, quarterback a power play, and I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what they need. They didn't have that. That's why their power play was so bad last year.
Yeah, Zane Perreck's interesting. He's really, really talented. He plays like a super high skill, high risk game. Obviously scored a ton of points at juniors this past year. The one thing that gives me pause about the Flyers targeting Perreck is, number one, I do think they want to get bigger on the blue line. And Perreck is not a big guy. He's like 6 foot, so he's not tiny, but he doesn't bring the size. Number two is that his skill set is fairly similar to Jamie Drysdale's. Now, granted, there's no guarantee Drysdale is going to pan out the way they think he's going to. But if, let's say, Drysdale does pan out and you drafted Perreck with a high pick, maybe even traded up for him, then you've got two guys that basically play the same role, undersized, right-handed shooting defensemen who are offensively oriented. I just don't know if they would – maybe they would pick Perreck if he slides to them, but I don't know they would trade up for him.
Okay. How about I'm just going to go through some prospects with you. Anton Siliev, who is the Zeno Chara, 6'7", but he could skate. Do they like him, you think?
I think they've liked Saliev for the entirety of the year. I don't think there's any chance he slips to them. Teams are in love with drafting a 6'7" Russian
who can skate
and can hit. Like, if I had to guess, I don't think he slips past 3.
He doesn't go past 3.
I've heard Anaheim. Yeah, I've heard Anaheim that he doesn't slip past 3. You never know, but my understanding is that Anaheim wants to beef up their blue line core with some size and some nastiness, and I think they're going to go Saliev.
All right, so in the Charlie mock, who's 1, 2, 3?
My understanding, well, obviously Celebrini's going on. That's no doubt about it. Everything I've heard in Vegas is that Artem Levshinov is going to. That the Blackhawks have decided, they were basically between him and Demidov, and they've decided on Levshinov. And then 3 is the pick where I don't know for sure, but my best guess is it's Saliev, just because teams love those big defensemen that can skate.
So if the Flyers go to 4 with Columbus, wow. So Demidov with the Charlie mock would be available.
He would be there if they want him, if they trade up, of course.
I mean, what would you like? Who would your dream pick be?
Demidov is my number 2. He's the number 2 guy on my board, so he probably would be my dream pick. I mean, he doesn't really fill a need. He's not I don't think he's a center. He's not that big, so he doesn't really help the size thing. He's just so skilled, and the idea of pairing him next to Michkov, have Michkov on the right, Demidov on the left for the next 10 plus years. That's an exciting idea.
Wow. That would be outrageous. Thinking about that, you get a big center to go with those two. Wow. That could be the number 1 line that we've been looking for. VG.
Should have doing part 2.
Yeah.
Hey, Charlie, so I was just some mocks right around 11 and 12. It looks like people think that Berkeley Canton would be a really good fit for them. And Constant Hellenius.
Yeah, you're close.
You
almost got it. Constant Hellenius, yeah.
All right, so
thank you, by the way.
Yes.
Thank you, Charlie, for not looking down at us as we butcher the first 15 of this draft.
Yeah.
No worries.
Between those two, is there one that you think is a better fit?
Yeah, I personally, and to be clear, I like both of them. They're both legitimately really good prospects. I wouldn't be disappointed for the Flyers if they get either of them. I prefer Catton because, to me, Catton has the higher ceiling. Like Hellenius, super smart player, really high hockey IQ, high motor. He's going to be a player. He's going to be a good player at the very least. I don't watch him, and I don't necessarily see a dynamic element to his game. Like, I don't see a guy who's going to rack up a ton of points. I mean, he's going to score, but not a guy who's going to be a true top of the lineup guy. Whereas with Catton, I see a player who could be a dynamic offensive weapon. And that's what I think they need more. Like, I watch Hellenius, and I see a really, really good second-line center. And that's great. Second-line centers are really important. I watch Catton, and I see a guy where if he hits, and there's risk there, he's small, he's slight, he's not the strongest kid in the world. There's some concern he won't stick down the middle, that he might have to kick out to wing. But if he hits, like we're talking about, the guy who I hilariously kind of compare his upside to is hilariously, given the general manager of the team, like prime Danny Briere. Where prime Danny Briere, he was undersized, he wasn't the greatest defensively, but he could score the points. And that's kind of what I think Catton could become.
Do you think Catton will be there at 12, or will they have to move up to like 8 or 9 to grab him?
That's a really good question. The way the board is falling, it looks like there's a chance. In my mind, he shouldn't. I think he's too talented to slip to 12. But there's a lot of real good defensemen in this draft that teams are going to want to get. And when I look at the mock, the 3 spots that I think he could go, I could see him going 7 to Ottawa, although it seems like they like another guy more. But again, there's everything smokescreen at this point. He could go 10 to New Jersey, which I think is a legitimate spot where he could fall. He could legitimately go 10 to the Devils, and then one other one. He could go 9 to Calgary. I think he could go 9 to Calgary, especially because the funny part about Calgary this year is that obviously one of their franchise legends is Jarome Iginla. One of their all-time players. Yeah. Well, his son's in the draft, and he could be there at 9. And it's like, if he's there at 9, do you really think Calgary's going to let him slip? Like, come on.
Right.
What do you think of him as a player, as a prospect, Iginla?
TJ Iginla, I like him a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think he could be a legitimate top line winger. He's got the compete. He's got the goal scoring ability. He's a fun player to watch. He's a guy where like I'm not expecting him to fall to 12, but if the Flyers got him, like man, it would be fun to have Jarome Iginla's kid on your team.
Yeah, I love that. His father was ridiculous, man. Yeah. He just your eyes just went to him on the ice.
Charlie, is the mindset still tonight, especially in the first round, best available? Or are they trying to find players that can fit this team?
Everybody's going to say it's best player available. The thing is that how can you know that unless you're in the draft room when you're looking at their draft board? My guess, and this is an educated guess more than anything, I think they're going to lean towards center. Now, that's not saying they wouldn't pick a defenseman or a wing, but I think they know how big of an organizational weakness center is. So I think that if it's down to like a defenseman and a center and they have those 2 guys rated around the same, if like one guy's 10 on their draft board, one guy's 11, I think they're going to go with the center. But we'll see.
Hey, since we're talking prospects, Chow, look in their system. Who are the kids that you like that you could see at some point next year, possibly?
On the team next year? That's a good question. Well, I think the top guy, if you're talking about like their top end prospects, Emil Andre, he got a couple games at the start of last year. I think he's pretty close. That's another reason why like you do wonder if they're at some point going to make a big move for a defenseman with size, because Andre, I like him a lot, but he's another smallish defenseman. So then you'd have Andre, York, and Drysdale, all smallish guys. So they might want a bigger guy. But Andre, I think, can play games this year to be sure. They're real high on this kid, Hunter McDonald, who was a late round pick a few years back. He's a big dude. He's mean. He hits. I think they like him a lot. And he's the kind of guy who I could see maybe not making the team out of camp, but potentially like getting called up if he excels in the AHL, getting called up like midway through the year and then giving him a look.
Any scoring down there to watch in the near future?
And he's scoring. Well, there's Samu Tuamala, who is probably their most interesting player in the AHL, or interesting forward in the AHL. My understanding, based on who I talked to at the end of the year, is that they think he needs one more season in the AHL before he's NHL ready. But timelines can change. Like if he storms out of the gate and scores 20 points in 15 games, then maybe they're like, yeah, we're calling him up. He's ready. Right now, I think they believe he needs one more year. But he's exciting. He's fast. He plays with an edge. He's not huge, but he's one of those like aggressive forechecking types who has some skill. So he could be like a middle of the lineup guy.
I'll tell you, I'm excited. I think it sounds like the rest of the league. Because listen, the Flyers being good is good for the NHL. It sounds like the rest of the league is starting to go, all right, they're building something there.
Yeah, I think the NHL is very happy the Flyers seem to be trending back in the right direction. It's like when, right now, obviously, they just got Bedard last year, but it's like when the Blackhawks are struggling.
Yes.
Like the NHL does not like to see that because they're such a big market. They drive TV ratings. The Flyers are the same thing. So they want to see the Flyers do well, and now it's just on Danny Briere to build a team that can do it.
Yeah. Hey, Charlie,
you're so smart and interesting. What's Charlie do with his downtime in Vegas? You do a buffet, some slots, some craps. Like, what are you up to out there?
He's rolling.
I played a little bit of blackjack last night, and I'm down a bit. Not an insane amount, but I'm down a bit. So
you deserve it, Charlie. How's the sphere looking?
So I haven't seen it yet up close. I've seen it from distance. It looks utterly ridiculous from distance, but I'm really excited tonight to see it up close.
It's going to be dope, Charlie. It's going to be dope.
Wait, Charlie, are you a blackjack guy who's serious? Like, if I'm at your table and I'm clueless about blackjack and I'm not taking hits when I should, do you get aggravated at the table?
I can see him.
No, I'm far from a blackjack expert.
He's a cerebral player.
Yeah,
I like it.
Right.
I like it. Child, great stuff, man. Enjoy yourself out there, all right?
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, buddy. Charlie O'Connor, PHLY Flyers. Check it out, all Flyers show on the all PHLY network.
Yeah, he knows his stuff.
He's great. He really is fantastic.
We all silly like the mayor.